Hi, welcome to Bible Walkthrough. My name is Wes Warner,
I'm Adam Ayers.
and today we're going to go through the book of Ecclesiastes, and Adam is going to share his gift with us. He's going to help us understand the context of this book of the Bible.
This one is a sticky one, and if you've tuned into our episode on Ecclesiastes 7, 1 through 6, you'll understand a little bit of how sticky this one is. Ecclesiastes is a very argued book from a number of angles. We can't deal with all the scholarly opinion about Ecclesiastes here, but I would just want to give you a take from a missiological hermeneutic perspective. And missiological hermeneutics involves literary interpretation, literary criticism, and many of the classic operations of biblical studies. So sociological kinds of analyses and literary analyses and the historical situation, those kinds of things. We take those into account, but from a perspective that wants to see what is the text doing rather than what is it saying or what is its situation only or what events happened. So in this, we have to take into account with Ecclesiastes that this stands in the wisdom tradition, and it's probably very late in the wisdom tradition, very possibly the last of the written wisdom collections of the Hebrew Bible, in the sense of when it was composed. It's probably a post-exilic work. It's probably the work of a sage, some of the Hakamim, the wise men of Israel. After Israel has been destroyed, after Judah has been destroyed, after Babylon has been through the land and wiped out Jerusalem, and there's this exile that takes place, and the people in the exile do a lot of rethinking about what were we on about, what went wrong, why did this happen. They deal with the problem of theodicy, the problem of evil, a lot, and they begin to reflect and think back. Now the people who were there, a lot of the wise people, the nobles and the rulers and the artisans, were taken away in the first deportation to Babylon. And they begin this process of rethinking. And a lot of the religious people have this training are there as well, the ones who have training. And they don't have much to do because there's no temple. And they begin to rethink. And the wisdom tradition, you have to remember that wisdom tradition is not unique to Israel. Wisdom tradition was pursued by other cultures around the Fertile Crescent. In Egypt, it's the Ma'at tradition. There's Dame wisdom, this goddess wisdom there. And wisdom is sort of like everythingology. In the ancient world, it's the entire conceptualization of how the universe works. So it includes things like justice and economics and psychology, these slices that we would slice up today, but then it was all. And farming and the nature of animals and the nature of people. And this is this body of literature collected in Proverbs that could be remembered and passed on to particularly young nobles or within the tribes and within the royal court, both. In the tribes, the elders, the folk wisdom that would give them the training to know how the world works so they could both lead their people and do things like legal judgment. So they could make decisions in the gate as they were supposed to. And this tradition builds up about how to be a successful person, how to be a good ruler, what's right, what's wrong, how does the world work. And it starts to take on this nature of push, pull, click, click. If you do A, B will happen. If you do B, C will happen. And they begin to think, rather than more like a set of guidelines about the way the world works, they begin to act as though these are laws of cause and effect. Well, they're more like general cause and effect. And this writer, Kohelet, in Ecclesiastes, is after the exile when everything went wrong, and he is reflecting back on this wisdom tradition saying, things don't always go rightly. The universe doesn't work push, pull, click, click. It's not pull lever A and get result B. There's something in the universe that you can do the very best thing and something weird's going to happen to you. There's ironic stuff. There's frustrating stuff. There's chaotic stuff. You can get all your ducks in the row and something tragic will happen. And so what he does, and it's brilliant, the strategy that he does, he takes wisdom methodology, taking a principle in a proverb and trying to work it in lots of situations. He takes this methodology of using a proverb, and you got to remember that the wise men would do sort of like proverb wars. One would say one proverb and the other one would say another proverb, and that's how they made decisions in the gate. It's what goes on in the book of Job. Maybe we could do Job some other time. But like in Job, you have these guys, these four guys sitting around, and they're exchanging proverbs with each other, saying, oh, this proverb says this, yes, but this proverb says that. If you think of lawyers quoting precedent law, that's kind of what's happening. And so there's a dialogue sort of form, a dialectic form to wisdom investigation. And the way you do it is you do a proverb and then match it with a proverb, or you do a proverb and then you match it with a situation. That's how wisdom works its way out. We also see this in the riddling that happens with Jesus and Pharisees in the New Testament, so that tradition stays on past. But we can't go into all of that now. So a saying is answered with a saying, or a saying is answered with a situation. That's what we find in Job. That's what we find here in Ecclesiastes. Now, the author of Ecclesiastes takes on the persona of Solomon. And there are some cues that it might not be Solomon. We can't get into all those. One of the cues is very clear, where he says, I achieved more than all who reigned in Jerusalem before me. If that was Solomon, it was just his dad.
Just David,
yeah. So there's some hints where he slips, and it shows these probably at a much later time. But if you were to put on a stovepipe hat and a big frock coat and go out and start talking about current, American politics in the park, people would hear your critique. They wouldn't say that you're being false by playing Abraham Lincoln. They would say, oh, he's taking on that person, and I can hear him as though he were Lincoln in order to get a perspective on what's going on now. So this author takes on that persona of Solomon, who has done it all. He's got 1,000 women. He's got all the money he could ever have. He's got more brains. They're leaking out of his ears. He's the smartest and the richest and the most powerful Jew that ever lived. And he takes on that in order to be able to say, I've done it all and it's not worth anything. But only if you're at the top of the heap is anyone going to listen to you. So he has to say this set of critiques from the top of the heap, so he takes on the voice of Solomon, and then he begins to ask hard questions. He says, so you've got $1 billion. Oh, yeah. What happens if you multiply it by 0? Comes out 0. And he says, everybody gets multiplied by 0. What does that do to your equation? And the one thing that you've never factored in is what he's saying back to the wisdom tradition. The one thing you and we have never factored in is entropy, chaos, 0, emptiness. He keeps saying, we keep acting as though it's a closed system, but it's an open system in which chaos keeps breaking in and death will turn everything to 0. To try to stop the presumption and really the frustration that comes with it. Because the presumption that things should go a certain way also brings with it frustration, tremendous frustration. If you do A, B will happen. Like the American dream. If you work hard and stay diligent, you'll be a success in life. Or it might be, if you work hard and stay diligent, you'll almost be a success till someone with a better lawyer comes and wipes you out for no reason other than their greed, and you're defenseless. Because that's what might happen. So he takes these wisdom proverbs and he throws them up in the air, and then he shoots them down with another wisdom observation. And he keeps doing that. He's throwing the plates in the air, all the different sayings of the wisdom tradition, and then shooting them down to try to, first, relieve the frustration of the exilic period, and 2, use wisdom process to critique wisdom understanding, to try to get a way through the exile and the bad things that happen in the chaos. And he's trying to say, we probably shouldn't have been so sure of ourselves. We should note that the universe is not a given thing, and that God is Lord over all of that, and he's the one who'll pick through the ashes and find the things that are valuable and not valuable. We keep thinking that we know what's valuable, having a long life, having a good business, being a success with lots of honor, with lots of wisdom, and that's what's going to make you somebody, and that's what's going to be satisfying in life. And he shoots that down over and over again with, but there's death and there's emptiness. He uses that term, emptiness. That's his chaos gun. And so he says we should probably live a little bit more humbly and not keep thinking that we know something. That's really the purpose of the whole book. That's these various passages. I wish we could go into them one by one, but that would take a little bit more time. We have to do an overview of the book. So if the viewers are going to read this, they have to do so hearing that this is the coffeehouse poet who's examining the angst of life and critiquing the wisdom tradition by using wisdom proverbs, saying, but what about zero? But what about zero? And he's not going to let them off the hook. He's going to keep them on that hook until they admit, we don't know it all. Because the wisest thing is to know that you're not so wise. That's his point. You're not so wise. We're not so wise. I hope that helps. Just to get a view of things. That's why it's so dark.
Yeah, Adam, that's an excellent view. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. That'll help us out as we go through this.
Yeah, and we'll deal with some more passages, some specific passages in our other episodes on Ecclesiastes. Watch for those episodes from Ecclesiastes and watch them with this. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time and next text on Bible Walkthrough.